All right, everyone. UFC 300 is hours away. I just arrived at my quasi-new location, so I want to just start up front with that really quick. I will put timestamps down as my comment, like first comment, and I'll pin it at the top of the video. I know this is a little late, but I just arrived last night. So going forward, you'll see me uploading more videos to YouTube. I'll be more interactive on Patreon for sure, and if anyone's looking for like one-on-one private lessons or maybe 2 at a time, 3 at a time tops, just hit me up privately however you would get in touch with me. I won't like require Patreon quite yet at this point. I don't want to be fair before I get my feet grounded, but I'm in a place now where I can train and blah 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 blah, so I can be more involved and active, and one of those things is studying fights and back to doing breakdowns, etc etc. So that said, I'm just going to kind of go through the card. There's some kind of I don't care fights that I'll just meh, but I'll go kind of bottom to top, and then I'll do a really quick recap at the end of like the main card. Again, I'll leave timestamps as a comment because I know this is a little bit late. It's not going to get a ton of views, but for the subscribers that have notifications on, etc., I wanted to put something out there if I had time, and I do. I have a couple hours to spare, so here we go. The one starting out is one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most, which is Davidson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Also, a caveat, one thing. I'm on DraftKings for lines, and I'm keeping lines in consideration. I'm not just picking winners. I'll go against the spread, and I think if I use DraftKings, that it'll be a better, it'll be, it's kind of the universal. They endorse MMA quite a bit, so I think they're the right site to use. Anywho, Davidson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt leading off the card. How insane is that? You have Figueiredo at minus 340 and Cody at plus 270. Tough to pick against Davidson because it's almost like a fight tailor-made for Cody to lose. He's just to make like say bad decisions. I think Figueiredo's power is deceptive. Doesn't have that kind of like quick fast twitch muscle like say a Cody does or O'Malley. So sometimes because he's not the biggest guy in the world, his power doesn't look like right. And he's not the only one. I mean, you see it more at heavyweight, and it's really rare in lightweight classes, but that's what makes him so interesting for a smaller guy. But that's a great fight. I would pick Figueiredo to win by knockout. In this probably in like the second round. I think Cody will come out looking good because here's the thing, Cody's skilled enough to win the fight, but I feel like he's going to get in a firefight that he loses standing. I don't think anything will really happen on the ground besides someone getting hurt and then maybe finish following up, and I think that's more favoring Figueiredo, that scenario. Cody could certainly knock him out. He's got the ability to, the power to, especially the footwork. I was watching a video of him training the other day, and his feet are just incredibly fast. He obviously started boxing young, or something like it, because his feet are incredibly fluent and fast, and that's not where he goes wrong. Technically, Cody's phenomenal. Where he goes wrong, I think, is he mentally likes I guess I would call it like cowboy-itis. He likes to, put a line in the sand and just throw it down, and I think against Figueiredo, that's where he thrives, on those kind of inside short shots, but we'll see. But I do like Figueiredo to win by finish. Next up, kind of a cool fight, interesting matchup. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. There's Bobby Green at minus 185, Jim Miller at plus 154. A lot of people, I haven't heard anyone pick Jim Miller, but I'm going to. I think just based on the fact that I think he's more well-rounded. I think Bobby's a slicker striker. I don't know, power-wise, I think Jim's probably a little more powerful. And honestly, his striking now looks better than it ever has in his career, which is crazy. Because I think the guy's like around my age, maybe a little bit younger, but not by too much. He's been around since the double-digit UFC. It's astounding. What an amazing career. But I respect both a ton. I think that should be a fun fight, but I like Miller as the underdog at plus 154. If you're looking at Bobby Green, he's minus 185. Not a crazy line, but is what it is. Next up, Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. Whatever. If you want to bet on that fight, I guess Andrade. Via side note, what is the new testing in place for the amount of testosterone allowed in female fighters? If anyone knows that, please leave a comment in the comment section. There are too many female fighters with deltoids that a lot of men who, yes, we create testosterone naturally, take years to build, like round deltoids that lead to a striation in the bicep, and there's like a divot, the placement of their abs versus their belly button. I don't know what's going on, but I find it interesting. There's another fighter on the card that got really, really jacked in a really short time too, so I'm curious who knows what about new testing policies, etc., but I digress. Next fight's one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most on the card. Maybe second most. Jaylen Turner at -230 versus Hanato Moicano. I love and respect Hanato Moicano a ton, and I don't like going against him here, but I absolutely love Jaylen Turner's skill set. I like his demeanor, and I love when a tall guy learns to be technically tall and fight that way. His knockout of Bobby Green, not that it was surprising as an outcome, but it was surprisingly violent and surprisingly one-sided, that fight. Turner was landing early. It was astounding. He's dangerous, and he's got better grappling than I think he gets credit for. So I'm going to go with Turner at -230. Next up, you have Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez. Great fight, and the odds aren't much different, clearly. Lopez is -142, and Youssef is +120, making it kind of a coin flip. I can see why Lopez is favored, but I like Youssef because this fight seems, again, I'll use the word tailor-made, but maybe not as much as the prior mentioned. It's up, the way this should play out seems more up Youssef's alley, but Lopez is extremely talented. I think you pick who you like there, maybe, but I like Youssef to win as a slight underdog. Speaking of testing policies, the next fight, Holly Holm at +350 versus Kayla Harrison at -455. I would not take Kayla Harrison at -455. I don't know that I'd bet the fight. I don't think I would, even if it was house money. Maybe not. But I don't. That line's crazy. If anything, if you're gonna bet that, I'd take Holly Holm. She's a former champ, and she has phenomenal anti-wrestling. You know, she's not too much of an offensive wrestler, but she's very good at staying up. She did it against Ronda, and I know everyone hates comparisons, and I get it. They're not the same fighter, Kayla and Ronda, but Holly Holm is a former champion, battle-tested in the bright lights, or under the bright lights on the big stage. And this, what bigger stage or what brighter lights? This is for Harrison to make her debut. It's crazy. The next fight, which should not be on the undercard compared to another fight, amazing. My friend from back home, Calvin Kattar at +142 versus Aljamain Sterling in his, I think this is his debut at 145, unless I forgot a fight. I believe it's his debut. Aljamain's at -170. Calvin at +142. I'm taking Calvin, but know that he's a friend. You know, I've met Calvin. I've trained with him, I think, once or twice. Well, I know once, I think twice. And I've definitely trained with Rob Font a few times inside of tongue. That said, I love Aljo. I mean, no disrespect, but just think Calvin has very educated defensive wrestling. Offensive wrestling when he needs it, but I think he'll do enough to keep Aljamain off him because he's very good at playing the distance game, and I don't think Aljamain is the same level boxer. He's got some slick things that he does that are a little bit tricky, especially to kind of feint into his shot and try to, you know, either broomstick or get his way around to the back, and then it's usually a wrap because he's so freaking good at back control. No surprise being a Matt Serra trained jiu-jitsu player or MMA fighter. I think it'll be a really good fight. I love it. I love the fight, but I'm gonna have to pick my homie Calvin, repping the New England Cartel. Next up, super interesting line even. We have Yuri Prochazka at -102 and Alexander Rakic, I believe it's pronounced, at -118, which is essentially a pick'em. That's just, you know, the same line. There isn't a favorite for the most part. As much as I kind of want, like, I think I might be rooting for Yuri, just based on, like, this kind of goofy back and forth between the two of them going on this week. But I think I got to go with Alexander on this one because he's, again, I'm going to just stick to being more well-rounded. I think that's the best way to explain it. Yuri's got probably more power, but I don't think it's a significant amount more. I think he's just got better power. And he's so awkward, etc., that Yuri's a scary fight for anyone at 205. They're both so fucking massive. Whoa. I couldn't believe when they did the face-off compared to, like, Dana and the security when I was watching the ceremonial weigh-ins, I suppose. Like, these guys are 205. I don't know how they get down there, but yeah, I'll take Alexander via stoppage in the third round. Next up, and this fight has absolutely no business on the main card, and I'm a big fan of Bo Nickel. I think he'll be wonderful if I have an eye for talent the way that I think I do. But at minus 1450 versus a plus 150 Cody Brundage, who by all accounts is more of a like amazing in the gym guy, and then tends to sort of shy away from a lot of his skill set under the bright lights when it's go time, and that's common for those of you that have trained. I'm sure you know that. There's like there's a million words, but most of them are kind of disparaging, so I'm not going to use them. But there are people that just tend to perform better sparring, even if it's touch sparring, when the consequences aren't dire. When it could be hard sparring, it could be whatever, but it's still, there isn't the same level of consequence to a loss and or getting caught. And when people are free and flowing and they feel like there aren't consequences, I think most people can do more. I don't think it's uncommon, but I think it's an extreme case with him for me to know, because I don't know him from Adam. But any fight with a minus 1,000 or more line on it doesn't seem like it should be on the main card. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't think Bo's a draw yet. And if you're going to try to make Bo Nickel into a draw or a star, whatever the plan is with him, I feel like they're slow rolling him to the extent that it's kind of obnoxious. Let him fight. Obviously, I'd pick him to win, but I wouldn't. I'd never lay that. I'd never lay down $1,450 to win 100. I mean, who's betting that fight at all? Okay, how good is this next fight? We have Oliveira at plus 185. Well, I think this line got more in favor of Sarukian. So Charles Oliveira is going against Arman Sarukian. Charles is plus 185. Arman is minus 230. I like Arman to win. Seems like a lot of people are picking Charles. The odds makers seem to see it a little bit different. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I do, before I even saw a line in this fight, I liked Arman to win. I just don't think he fears any of Charles' grappling, and I think the other high-level 155ers got in trouble with Charles because of that duality, the threat of him being such a finisher on the ground and having the ability to finish fights standing. That combinatory thing. It's kind of the Islam Habib effect. Not quite to that extent, because we saw how that played out, but great fight. I assume if say Gaethje wins or Holloway wins, and we'll go to that fight next, maybe those two winners fight of those two fights, but I don't know. Everyone's in title contention out of those four fighters, but I have a feeling Max wants to go back down to 145, and I kind of hope he does, because it doesn't look like there's much for a brand new champ at 145 after having a long reigning dominant champion at 145, and it just feels too soon to let Volkanovski back in. Anyway, I'll get back to Charles and Arman. I think Arman has probably more power. I don't know that his delivery system is quite as technical. I don't think his striking variety or his striking is varietal either. But that's not always the game. Sometimes the game is just a matter of fundamentals or training camp, and dude on the scale looked like, straight out of Muscle Beach in the 70s when, D-balls were the breakfast of champions. I haven't seen a fighter between fights, because I don't think that Dariush fight was that long ago, and he looks like a different human being. I don't know. I gotta know what's going on with the testing. And interestingly, Dana looks suddenly skinny too. Just an observation, I suppose. Next fight, I love and hate, and I will explain. It's Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway for the BMF belt. I'm not the biggest BMF belt fan, but I'll deal with that part of it. What I think is more of an issue here is the result is going to affect either 155, 145, or both. There's a lot of ways this could play out. If say Max comes out and dominates Justin, does he ask for a title shot right away at 155, or does he get it? Right? Just an interesting kind of fight. It's Gaethje at minus 155, Max is plus 130. It's close to a pick'em. Justin's a slight favorite, but not even based on that, just picking a winner because the line is that close. I think Gaethje is getting better every fight, and the most demonstrative I'd say I saw it was when he fought Tony Ferguson. I'm like, that's a different guy. The way he collected himself after getting dropped with that kind of mutual six, they both were right uppercut at the same time, and Tony's arc was a little bit tighter, and it wasn't wasn't enough. It was late in a round, etc. But Justin from then on just really honed in, took a little steam off his punches, focused on being technical and his footwork. And it seems like every fight he's just getting more streamlined in his striking. He's always been a savage. I mean, he's one of the hardest hitting 155ers ever, if not the hardest. And it's both hands, and it's straight strikes, it's round strikes. He's linear powerful, he's round powerful, and he's that kind of touch of death guy, whereas Max is more of a volume person. But if there's no grappling involved, I don't see the gas tank being the thing. The volume alone could be if Max is landing a lot, but Justin's defense has gotten so exponentially so much better since let's say like the Eddie Alvarez fight to now. He's like, it's almost like watching a different fight. It's like beautiful watching what Whitman has done with him, kind of in the same way we saw with Rose when she first beat Joanna. There was this leap in their ability to control distance via their feet. And I think Trevor Whitman, if you want to put coaches in categories, as a boxing for MMA guy, he's about as good as it gets. Whitman's amazing. I always try to watch whatever he's teaching because I feel like I'm always learning from that guy. One of the better corner advice guys, just a very brilliant mind. This is a very winnable fight, by the way, for Max, but if you're thinking Justin, you're kind of on the fence, I'm all about going for that. Absolutely, that's a smart bet. I think he is technically better and has more power, and Max is the one that's moving up. Usually the lighter guy, I'll use the guy I always use, Roy Jones Jr., when he went up in weight classes, especially all the way up to heavyweight, he was far and ahead the more skilled, just superior boxer against, say, John Ruiz, like to a not even close extent. But what usually happens in those, and I understand the weight differential between this at 155 and that at heavyweight boxing are entirely different, but Max isn't a one-hitter quitter guy at 145. He's a voluminous killer, and I love Max. How could you not? I don't know anyone that doesn't like Max Holloway. But Gaethje has scary power at 155, and honestly, I think he'd have that power at 170 as well. I just don't know. Max has a lot of he's got miles on him. He's never been shut off, but once that happens, that's it. It's like it's more of a piggy bank thing than it is a reparable kind of scenario. So I like Gaethje in that fight. Long story short, I know I ramble. Next up, I don't really care, but I'll pretend to. We have Zhang Weili or Weili Zhang versus Yan Jianan. It's minus 520 for Weili and plus 390 for Jianan. I'll pick Weili. There are other fights that I'm much more interested in. Next up, the one that counts the most, of course, is Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill, and the line is very close, interestingly. I felt like Pereira was more of a favorite than he is, but as it stands right now, he's at minus 135, and Hill is at plus 114. That is essentially an even line for all intents and purposes. I think this is a more winnable fight for Hill than some would have you believe, but I do think Pereira will beat him. I do think Pereira will knock him out. Not maybe in the first, and it won't surprise me if either fighter gets knocked out, or if it's early, or if it's late. These are just two absolute put your lights out type fighters. I don't think we'll see much grappling. We may from Hill. I don't think that would be a bad idea, but he's a striker. He's a move forward person, and Pereira sometimes against pressure thrives. We saw that in the Strickland fight, and I did break down that left hook, how he set up long before everyone copied me and just took credit, because I only got 1,000 views out of it. These guys are getting, $400,000 a year. Why not just watch my stuff and then say, oh, it's mine? It's not like it hasn't happened before for the last 10 years. But I like Pereira to win. Maybe a couple of rounds of playing out. But the power level with both, the finishing ratio, the ability to finish, the delivery systems of both fighters, it could be an incredible fight. But normally when the power level or the finishing ability, however you want to word that, your ability to, with strikes, just kind of put someone on Queer Street, they both have that in spades. And I think Pereira has more experience in those said gunfights, even with like Rustam Havilov and Glory. We didn't get the better of. I think Rustam's a better striker than Alex Pereira, but no one's going to talk about him because he's not in the UFC. I do think he has done MMA. Great fighter. Anywho, I like Pereira to win. I think Hill will land some things and maybe surprise a few people. Maybe make it interesting. Maybe even win. I think it's a winnable fight for him for sure. I want to make that clear too. But if I'm betting on this fight, I'm certainly taking Pereira. It's not the fight I love most, but it's one of the ones that I'm fairly confident in. So if if I had to pick a couple fights just to recap real quick, and that'll be a wrap. Starting next week, or maybe tomorrow if I can, I'm going to start uploading more regularly and being more involved. And I'm not far from where I was before, but I might be closer to some of you. So if anyone wants to start doing one-on-ones, I'm very reasonable, especially at first, depending on your level and experience, etc., etc. And if I have to come to you and all that. I like Pereira. I like putting a couple bucks on Pereira to win. I usually don't bet finishes versus not, because then it kind of takes the spirit out of it to me. But I think the smart money's on Pereira there. I just feel like he's more experienced against a variety of strikers, and I think Yuri Prochazka was more of the awkward can land guy, similar vein to how I try to describe Nate Diaz's striking. It's like brilliantly awkward, right? I think Hill's like that, but not as much so. So if he lands something, it'll be via skill, not via trick. And Pereira's always kind of via on his own unique skill set and just freakish power. He's speaking of massive 205ers, right? How that guy ever made 185 is so beyond what I can comprehend for weight loss. The other fights that I'm fairly confident in that matter, I like Gaethje over Holloway. I like Sarukian over Oliveira, and I think there was one more that I like a lot. Let me go. Oh, Jaylen Turner I like, but all of those are subject to being, told you so's tomorrow for BD. I understand that, but if you're betting, I want to try to win you some money, as I have for so many of my friends through the years, even if I don't bet myself. All right, so thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions and watch this within the next hour or two, I will just try to answer them in the comments, but just leave a comment. I'll reply right up until the fights start probably. And then tonight, make sure to follow me at Brendan Dorman, just spelled the same way, about the MMA. So at Brendan Dorman on Twitter. I usually try to tweet during the fights. I'll throw sometimes like 20 tweets out as the fights are going on. I'll be with people, so I don't know if I'll have time to, but I'll certainly be there in some capacity. I just don't know how active I'll be. And that's about it. I don't think anything else is a home run of a pick. I'm not as confident in him, but I really like Turner. Again, I want to reiterate this. I really like Turner to win. I really like Arman Sarukian to win, and I really like Gaethje to win. I like Pereira. He's the least of the bunch, but I like him to win as well. So if you're into parlays, some combinatory measure with those 4 fights makes sense to me. And I thank you all for tuning in. Again, I look forward to next week, getting back on the grind, doing what I love for a living, and hopefully I have your support in that. I'll need it. Love you all, and may the best fighters come out on top. This card should be fucking amazing.